Hey everybody, welcome to Life is Brewtiful. I'm Anthony, and today we're going to be doing an episode of This Week in Beer, the segment on my channel where we talk about the hardest hitting news stories coming out of the world of beer and brewing. Now, there's actually been some significant news stories that have come out since our last episode, and I cannot wait to get into them. A lot of ancient beer history and archaeological finds, so let's get into it. The first one I want to talk about is this ancient mass-producing brewery that was found in Egypt. Archaeologists uncovered this mass production facility for beer that dates all the way back to around the year 3100 BC. This brewery was huge, especially for ancient times. You know, we've known that Egyptians were some of the earliest civilizations to produce beer and everything, and we know that they had done large scale, but I mean, this is insane. We're talking about over 20,000 liters at a time. And it all equated to around 40 different clay vessels of varying sizes that were used for heating, storing, and eventually serving the beer. And they believe that this beer was was used at the time for burials for pharaohs and ancient religious leaders, and it was more of a ritualistic beer, which is insane that they needed to produce that much. I find it a little hard to believe that it wasn't at least somewhat used for general consumption, you know? This is such a huge thing because it's going to unveil so much information about ancient Egyptian beer, ancient beer brewing practices. It's just one of the most significant finds in years. I'm extremely excited to see what new information comes out of this, and I don't know. I just blown away. I'm going to definitely stick with this story and let y'all know if there's any interesting developments coming out of it. Secondly, there was a really interesting breakthrough in hop research this past week. Researchers were able to further their understanding of the hop genome through a series of biological sequencing. Now, I'm honestly not going to talk too much about that because it goes way over my head, but I will talk about the significances of it. Hops have long been considered a medicinal aspect as well as a brewing ingredient, and this research is going to unveil a lot of information for both of those. Medical researchers are going to be able to figure out different ways to utilize its many oils and all of its different compounds, and they're going to be able to they're going to try to generate new medical procedures and possible medicine coming from this research. As far as the world of brewing goes, this is huge. This is going to make a massive impact because this further understanding is going to help hop growers, hop farmers, hop breeders to be able to create really intense, very specific, almost designer hops. They have a full understanding of its genome and they understand how it works and what makes what do what. They're going to be able to tweak it, adjust it, mess around with it, and we're going to end up, I believe, with some magnificently pungent, some great aromatic and deep, rich flavors coming out of these potentially, near future hops. I mean, it's going to open up a new world. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some crazy new hop varietals coming out within the next couple of years. And the next story isn't necessarily so much a scientific research or historical uncovering, unveiling, as it is just giving some love to some ancient and some new beer styles. The Brewers Association every year comes out with their new list of beer styles where they go through and they try to categorize and describe and define different beer styles based off of their sensory analytical profile. This year, they actually officially announced the Kentucky Common, which was one of the early America's homegrown beer styles that has long since been overlooked and largely forgotten. But one of the things that I think is so cool about that is it had been historically lumped into the historical beer style conglomerate, which isn't really a good definition for it since it does have its own unique sensory analytical characteristics and its own unique history, and I really like that they're showing some love for that. Additionally, we're going to start seeing some more regional developed beers that have kind of come up during the age of craft beer and have solidified their own unique identity. Most notably of which is the New Zealand Pale Ale. And if you've been in the craft beer and especially the hop scene for the past couple of years, you know that New Zealand and the South Pacific is making some of the most interesting, aromatically dank hops in the game right now. And they are truly different than their other hemisphere brethren. So it only makes sense for their beers that are being produced down there using these regionally, not exclusive, but originated hops and defining their own beer style. I really like that and I really support that. There was also some discussion about like German export stouts, which I haven't been able to dive too deep into yet, but the main point to take away is that I think we're going to start seeing a lot more deep dives into regionally exclusive brewing, especially with their alterations of existing and more commonly known beer styles like the stout and the pale ale. Our next story is drastically different, and I want to talk a little bit about this Constellation Brands and Corona versus AB InBev and Corona. Now, some of you may know back in the early parts of 2020, seltzers were really popping off coming out of like bigger breweries. I think Bud Light had their own, Natty Light had their own. Corona was planning on releasing their own line of hard seltzers. And I think they actually made it to shelves. There were commercials airing and everything like that, but they mysteriously just disappeared, vanished, and no one was able to find them. And it was a complete recall, complete cancellation of the rollout. The initial thought was that they didn't want to push Corona seltzers during the start of the coronavirus pandemic. People assumed that it would be a potentially devastating move for the brand when the term Corona was looked so negatively upon. Well, what it turns out is, okay, this is going to get a little bit confusing, but AB InBev and Constellation Brands have entered into a legal lawsuit over the rollout of Corona. AB InBev owns a massive portion of the Corona brand, but Constellation Brands, which is a completely separate entity, they own the distribution rights in North America for Corona. But essentially what happens is, as Constellation Brands wanted to roll out Corona Seltzer, AB InBev didn't want it to happen. So they were kind of going head to head, and because of the legal lawsuit, all the seltzers got pulled. It's argued, does Modelo Group and Constellation Brands own all of Corona and have the right to make decisions like creating a seltzer and selling it? Or are they only able to produce the beer according to the definition of their legal agreement, with seltzer being not a beer? So that would be infringing on AB InBev and Modelo's like joint venture. The important part to take away from this is this fact. In the United States, hard seltzers are legally under the umbrella of beer because of its production, which is very similar in brewing processes to beer. And because of that, it's lumped in under the same tax category. That's why a lot of craft breweries are able to make their own hard seltzer without having to get a separate license. Now, what this lawsuit could do is really set a precedent for the true definition of hard seltzer. Because if it does go the way where hard seltzer is completely defined as its own separate thing, all those craft breweries who were able to make hard seltzer and were pushing the boundaries of it pretty interestingly would have to probably cease that and file for their own special brewing license to produce hard seltzer. That's my prediction of what the fallout of this situation could be. I know a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about hard seltzer one way or another. You know, they might like them, but they're dead set on the fact that it's not beer. And you know what? I sympathize with that. But I also sympathize with the people who are using the legality of its definition to benefit the beer industry, because we all know beer industry has been on a decline for some time. And hard seltzer really acted as a pillar to help keep it afloat during these hard times. So I can see why people wouldn't necessarily want that. The long con issue is we know AB InBev has been going through and trying to, you know, I'll use the word. They're trying to like jeopardize and conspire against other facets of the brewing industry to be able to hinder them, creating a unlevel playing field, which is already pretty unlevel as is, for them to rise up, right, and stay afloat as the leader of the industry worldwide. We saw that happen during the whole beer and corn syrup fiasco, where Bud Light took aim at their potential business partners who were all going to join into a joint venture and, raise the tide and keep all boats afloat in one massive marketing campaign, but they sabotaged it in order to keep themselves ahead. At least that's my theory. I wouldn't be surprised if they were doing the exact same thing with this hard seltzer movement. They saw that hard seltzer was really helping prop up the failing beer industry, and this move could be another significant blow to that. So I don't know. It's a lot of conspiracy theory going on. I feel like I need a tinfoil hat for this, but I don't think it's out of the realm of plausibility. I don't know what the fallout's going to be. I don't even know what the intentions truly are. AB InBev could be trying to sabotage the industry and create an unlevel playing field. They could just be protecting their business interests. It's unsure, and all I know is that it's going to get interesting, and it's going to create some type of legal precedence here in the near future. I guarantee it. So let's stick with this and let's see what happens. So that's going to conclude this week in beer. There was definitely some interesting developments, and there was a lot of really interesting things that we will be seeing in the future. I guarantee it. I think we're going to see some really cool developments, whether that's the revival of some ancient beer styles coming out of the Brewers Association's new definition, inspiring brewers, some great archaeological finds coming out of Egypt, and this potential legal precedent coming out of AB InBev. I am very excited to see what all this is going to spell for the future of craft beer and what new developments could come from it. Some good, probably some bad. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to stick with it, and I'll let you all know as soon as I know. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I cannot thank y'all enough for all the support I've gotten lately. It has just been absolutely heartwarming. So thank you for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. Remember, there's a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers.